So when I fight, come on church. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Yeah. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible. All I see. When all I see are the ashes, you see my beauty. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And oh God, the battle belongs to you. Amen, church. Yeah. Let's put our hands together this morning.
Well, good morning. I want to welcome you to Calvary today. My name is Brian. I'm the lead pastor at our church, and we're so happy that you've chosen to attend. Whether you are in the house or watching online, we're just awfully glad that you come to worship with us today. I am, of course, with my family, with Jen and Aubrey and Vance on spring break, and so we are taking about a week just to relax, get a little beach, get a little bit of sun, work on this already golden tan that I have. That's obviously a joke. My two kids and I are basically vampires. We get sun and we die, but we'll be careful. Please pray for us. And we miss being there with y'all this morning, but there are some very, very exciting things to come. And one of the things I want to tell you about is 2 weeks from today, we are actually going to be starting what is known as the Calvary Now campaign. I know a lot of you have been waiting a long time to hear the specific details of our new church build in South Grand Prairie, of where we're going and what we're doing. And we're calling this campaign Calvary Now because even though we have a great past and a very bright future, we believe that now is of tremendous importance, that right now we can become a church that leads people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ in 2022, right here in the 21st century. We're going to be talking about specifics in 2 weeks. You do not want to miss this 40-day series where we really lay out the vision for our future and how you and your family can specifically be involved. But this morning is also an incredibly special day because we are welcoming Ronda Paulson, who's the founder and executive director of Isaiah 117, which is an organization that is making a profound difference in the lives of foster kids, of their families, and of social workers around the country. Rhonda's going to be speaking to us in a few moments. I've heard her presentation now a few times and have been moved and brokenhearted and blessed every time that I've heard it. I know it's going to be a treat. So right now, let's do this. Let's all stand. We're going to get around, shake a few hands, greet somebody in the name of the Lord. If you're not comfortable, just stay seated. You can wave at people, but otherwise, let's get around right now. So glad you're here. Let's do it.
Dry bones right now. Breathe in, breathe out. No more drinking the dirt, thirsty. Oh, Spirit of resurrection flowing through me. You made me a new creation. How can it be? Living water, saturate my soul like a river. Break the levee, let it overflow. I could never have too much of your love, your love. Living water, deep within me, saturate my soul. Sing this with us, one life. One life soon past. Only what's done for you will last. So break up this dry ground. Spring a well from the inside out. Living water deep within me, saturate my soul like a river. Break the levee, let it overflow. I could never have too much of your living water deep within me, saturate my soul. atmosphere here in my chest. Holy wellspring, what's in store? I am longing for more. Living water deep within me, saturate my soul like a river. Break a levee, let it overflow. I could never have too much of your love, your love. Oh, living water deep within me, saturate my soul. Living water deep within me, saturate my soul like a river. Break the levee, let it overflow. I could never have too much of your love, your love. Oh, living water deep within me, saturate my soul. Oh, oh, saturate my soul. Let's sing this out. Let the King.
You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let
Come on,
me
church.
down.
You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let me down. You're never gonna let At this time, I would like to invite the ushers forward. And Pastor Brian says that every single week, giving is just as much a part of worship as singing and serving. I'm going to pray for the offering, and then we will continue. God, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come into your presence, to praise you, to worship your holy name. God, I pray that you will take this offering and these tithes, bless it, multiply it. God, I pray that it will be used for your honor and your glory. That's in your name I pray. Amen. Darkness, we were away without hope and without light.
To heaven you came run. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt.
Stand with us. Praise the Father. Praise the Father. Praise the Son. Praise the Spirit. Three in one. God of glory, majesty. Praise forever to the King of Kings.
To reveal the kingdom come and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, or even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus for our sake you died.
Y'all sing us out this morning. Praise.
Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. As you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till the stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death, and the dead was from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who come to the Father are restored.
And the church
Church of Christ was born, then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of hope shall not kneel, shall not faint. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me.
guys can be seated.
Thank you so much for allowing us to share the story of Isaiah 117 House with you all today. For those who don't know me, my name is Lauren Schaefer.
And my name is Megan Hosbrook.
We are the expansion coordinators for Isaiah 117 House, Dallas County. For the last year and a half almost, Megan and I have been working towards bringing and making home a reality here in our county. And so before we ask Ronda to come up here and share the story, we wanted to tell you a little bit about ourselves and why we wanted to bring this here. So in 2016, I bought my first house, and I knew that I wanted to use it to serve the Lord. And I thought maybe I would host a life group or host youth activities for my son, who was in the youth group at the time. But the Lord led me to foster care. And in the last 6 years, I've had the privilege of serving 10 children. And that's 10 times children have shown up at my door with nothing. And I've had to scramble to find the things that they need. They've been dirty. They have, if they did come with clothes, they were too small or too big. And Megan has been by my side and has made many a run to Walmart with me. But it's been a humbling experience, to say the least. I have seen the trauma that these children have had to deal with, not only on removal day, but every day. And so watching an episode of Returning the Favor, which Megan sent to me, I was bawling my eyes out, and she said, "I want to do this, but I don't know how." And I said, I'm all in, I'll figure it out. And so we've been working hard, and Megan is gonna share with you why this is so needed in Texas.
So as Lauren mentioned, we've been waiting patiently, and a lot of times impatiently, for this home to become a reality. And we really had to trust in God's timing and not ours. But the more we speak to people about our ministry, and the more we talk about this home that's coming, the more the Lord continues to confirm in His perfect timing. So why now? Why Texas? Why Dallas County? Why Grand Prairie? So currently, Dallas County has 1,000 kids that are in foster care, but there are only half that number of licensed foster care homes. In a recent article that the Dallas Morning News published on February 14th of this year, they said that 221 children spent at least 2 consecutive nights sleeping in CPS offices, hotels, or makeshift facilities in the month of January. Did you catch that? 200 kids statewide slept on cots, in government office buildings, in hotel rooms, which I'm sure are not the Ritz, or on mattresses that were pitched into makeshift facilities. The system is failing these children. They're failing God's children. And we know that we can't fix all of the issues that go with foster care and the foster care system. But we do know that we can change how foster care begins for a few of these kids. So that is why we need an Isaiah 117 house in our county, in every state, everywhere. And so at this time, we're going to welcome the founder and executive director of Isaiah 117 House, Ronda Paulson.
Well, good morning. I am so excited to be with you this morning, and honestly, as the girls were speaking, it just hit me. If you hear nothing else this morning, I want you to hear this. God wants your yes. I don't know why the creator of the universe wants to use us. He doesn't need us, but he wants us. And he's always inviting us in. And the ministry that I'm about to tell you about is full of 50 plus women who all came to me and said, I don't know that I can do this. I'm not equipped. I don't think I have the time. But God asked me to come here, and I said yes. He wants your yes too. Isaiah 117 House is a ministry that exists to reduce trauma for children on the day that they are removed from their home, to lighten the load of caseworkers, and to ease that transition for that future placement. And I want to tell you all about the houses and stories from the homes and everything that God is doing in these homes that He is building for children that He's never forgotten. But I honestly can't tell you about Isaiah 117 House without telling you how I got here. In 2014, I knew nothing about foster care. In 2014, I was actually a cheer and dance coach at a local university in Tennessee, and actually an anatomy professor, which meant I worked in the cadaver lab, and then I picked up my pom-poms, which was weird, but that was me. Married to my college sweetheart, Corey, 2 beautiful children, Sophie and Mac. It's a good life, easy life, predictable life. I wouldn't have told you that I had any regrets about my marriage or where my life was, but if you had really pushed me, I would have told you, well, I did always believe that we would adopt. I believed it my whole life. I can remember being in high school and telling my girlfriends, I'm going to adopt a baby someday. And then being in college and telling my college roommates, I'm going to adopt a baby someday. And how that never came up in the 2-year courtship with my husband or premarital counseling, I'm not sure how we missed that. But sometime in that first year of marriage, which was 1997, I said something like, I can't wait until we adopt. And he was like, what? And I said, yes, the Lord has always told me I would adopt. And he was like, that is funny. The Lord has always told me I wouldn't. And I'm like, what? I mean, Corey Paulson truly lives by the motto, if mama's happy, everybody's happy. I mean, he lets me have my way about everything except this. Did not have a heart for it, didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to pray about it. We'd be at church. It would be Orphan Sunday. They would show some horrible video about a child not being chosen. I would be under the pew doing the ugly cry, and he'd be like, you need to get up. People are looking. I mean, nothing. So, 1997 till 2014, I call that patience. I was homesick from work, which was rare. It was a Monday. I was homesick from work. I was laying in my bed, and I was watching the Today Show. And it was November, and it was National Adoption Month. And so they were doing an entire special about adoption, and they actually had a judge on the plaza creating forever families right then and there, like finalizing adoptions. And so I am laying in my bed crying because I'm supposed to adopt a baby and my husband won't let me, and this is beautiful. And then they announced that 75% of the children being adopted that day were being adopted through foster care. I knew nothing about foster care, but you can Google anything. And so laying in my bed, I grabbed my laptop and I Googled foster care, Northeast Tennessee. And the very first thing that popped up is that if you want to be a foster parent, you have to take classes. And this was a Monday, and the classes that we needed were starting that Thursday at a church we were very familiar with. Well, that was the Lord, clearly. And so I did the only thing a God-loving, passionate woman can do. I called my husband at work. I said, want to go on a date Thursday night? He said, I'd love to. And I remember we went out to eat, and when we left the restaurant, I said, want to drive out to Crossroads Christian Church? And he was like, on our date? I was like, yeah, Ronda. He drove out to Crossroads Christian Church. We pulled in the parking lot. The parking lot was full. He was like, lots of people dating at the Crossroads Christian Church. I was like, I know, it's crazy. We go in, we sit down, and the lady stands up and says, welcome to your 8-week study of foster care. 8-week study of foster care? He was not happy with me. They had left a notepad for us to take notes about the children. He was writing hateful little notes and shoving them over at me. And I was like, we're going to get kicked out. He's like, I hope so. I mean, not happy. We sat through that first class, and when we left that night, I always tell people, I don't know what this says about our marriage, but we did not speak a word all the way home. We did not speak a word, and we went to bed. And we got up the next morning, and we were like, well, good morning, Schmoopy. Well, good morning, honey. And we lived life like normal until that next Thursday. We met in the driveway, and we drove out to class in silence. We drove home in silence. Week 3, we drove out in silence. And we were coming home week 3. And Corey said, I don't want to do this. And I said, fair enough. You've been a good sport. I tricked you into it. We made it 3 weeks. Fair enough. And he said, oh, no, fair enough. Me, Ronda. And I said, what? And he said, you and the Lord have wrecked me. I'm a wrecked man. It's like, you've known me for 20 years. And I like simple, safe, and predictable. And nothing I have learned about foster care in the last 3 weeks sounds simple, safe, or predictable. And I don't want to do this. But now I know the numbers. And now I know the statistics. And now I know there are children in our county that just need a home. We got to do this. And so we went back week 4, week 5, week 6. Week 7, they took us on a field trip. They took us to the Department of Children's Services in Johnson City, Tennessee. This was my first ever visit to a Department of Child Welfare. Since that time, I've been in several across my state, several in your state. They're all the same. There's a lobby, and you get buzzed back, and there's a sea of cubicles, and there's some conference rooms. And so we were sitting in a conference room in Johnson City, Tennessee. No windows, no color, no light. I remember thinking to myself, that carpet is really gross. State-issued furniture, phone that's still plugged into a wall, conference room. And the gentleman leading that class that night said, when a child is removed from their home, they come here. I looked around that room and I thought, well, surely he's mistaken, because who would ever bring a child here? And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm sorry, sir, but when you say a child comes here, what do you actually mean? And he said, a little girl slept on this floor last night. And I remember there was a physical pain in my chest. My heart hurt. And I remember my shoulders got real heavy, and they went toward the table, and I couldn't pick my head up, and I couldn't stop crying, and I just kept seeing her. I just kept seeing this 6, 7-year-old little girl who left the only mama she'd ever known. And although we might not approve, she did. She'd left her home. If she had anything with her, it was in a black trash bag. And now she was sleeping on that really dirty carpet alone. And then all of a sudden, this anger started to well up in me. I was getting so mad. But I wasn't mad at the system, and I wasn't mad at caseworkers, and I wasn't mad at mom. I was mad at God. And I started to yell at him in my mind. I was like, this isn't fair. That little girl has done nothing wrong. Who's going to tell her? Who's going to tell her that she's loved? Who's going to tell her that there's hope? Who's going to tell her that she's worthy and that she's not alone? Who's going to tell her? And I heard God say, these are my children. What are you going to do? What am I going to do? I'm a cheer and dance coach. Like, what? Like, no. This is a broken foster care system. Like, you got the wrong girl. This is too big. And so I basically told him no. And we finished week 8. And we went back to our very simple, safe, predictable life for almost a year. It was November of 2015, November 5th to be exact, at 3:30 in the afternoon. I was doing homework with Sophie, who was 12 at the time, and Mac, who was 9. And we were sitting at our kitchen island, and the phone rang. There was a caseworker, and she said, there's a 9-month-old little boy that needs a home. And I said, ma'am, I'm going to do something very uncharacteristic. And she said, what's that? I said, I'm going to ask my husband if this is okay. She said, that's a good idea. And I called Corey at work and I said, tell me you'll love me no matter what. And he said, you wrecked the car again? I was like, no. Tell me you'll love me no matter what. And he said, what's going on? And I said, we're about to get in the hottest mess we've ever been in. And he said, there's a baby. I said, there's a baby. He said, I'm on my way. And so we loaded up Sophie and Mac, and we drove to the back door of the Carter County Department of Children's Services. When they opened the door, there was this chubby 9-month-old, chubbiest 9-month-old I've ever seen. Fair skin, fiery red hair. And his outfit was way too small. And when I asked about it, they said, well, actually, the outfit he was wearing was so filthy, we had to throw it away. And we tried to bathe him in our drug testing sink. But when you get him home, he desperately needs a bath. And then they handed me his one possession. It was a diaper bag. And I was instructed not to take it in my home for the next 12 to 24 hours so the roaches would crawl out. That was the day that I learned that not in some far-off land, not in some other country, Here, our children enter foster care in borrowed outfits with roach-infested diaper bags. But he smiled, and he reached for me, and his name is Isaiah. And so we took Isaiah home, and there's something about saying yes to God. There's something about giving him this little bitty yes. That when you take that first step of obedience, when you step into something that's bigger than you, when you step into something that doesn't make sense, even to your family or your friends or sometimes your church family, when you step into something that God is calling you to, God shows up. And so all of a sudden, our home had more laughter and more love and more joy and more energy. And so we started joking that it was like we had our own little prophet, Isaiah. And so I would go in the morning to get him out of his crib, and I would say, well, what's your message from the Lord this morning? That led us to read through the book of Isaiah. And when we got to Isaiah 117, it just hit different. Isaiah 117 basically says, do good, seek justice, take care of the widow, take care of the orphan. But I really want to look at that verse, because I've never liked it when people just grabbed a verse because it fit their need in the moment. Like, that's great and all, but what's the context? Like, who's God speaking to? What comes before that verse? What comes after that verse? And so if we take a closer look at Isaiah 117, the context is God is speaking to his people. And what comes before it is he's actually quite frustrated. He says, you think I want what you're currently doing? Like, you think I want these new moon festivals and these sacrifices? No. They're making me sick to my stomach. What I want from my people is for you to do good and seek justice and take care of the widow and take care of the orphan. So Isaiah 117 was just a family verse. And Isaiah was a 9-month-old little boy that was about to open our eyes to a world that we did not know existed. What we would learn during that first foster care journey from 2015 till 2017, we would not be able to walk away from. Because once you know, you know. We would learn that the Department of Children's Services was 3 minutes from our house. There was a world of hurt going on 3 minutes from my house, and I never learned about it in a church pew or in a small group or in a Sunday school class or in a mom's day out. I learned about it by getting out and getting in the trenches. I learned about it by showing up in that office every Friday morning at 10 a.m. for 2.5 years. I learned about it by standing in a lobby and watching moms hand off their children and teenagers waiting for moms that weren't coming. I learned about it by trying to peel Isaiah off of me as he cried for me, and his mama cried for him, and I cried because this was not the way it was supposed to be. I learned about foster care through judges and child advocates and courtrooms and child and family team meetings and caseworkers that were killing themselves. And the 3 things that really stood out to us, number 1, removal day. I was a high school teacher before I taught at the college level, and I knew about students being removed. And I now say, in my ignorance, I thought it was to be celebrated. I thought, yay, they'll be safe, they'll get a bath, they'll be at school every day next week. Yay, removal day. But then God let me see it through the eyes of a child, and there is nothing to celebrate on removal day. That child loses everything. They lose mama, and they will always want mama. She's mama. They lose their home. It's all they've ever known. They don't know anything different. It's their home. They lose their possessions except what can be put in a black trash bag. And there's a message in that. We're going to put your belongings in a trash bag? They lose their pets. We have children come in the house all the time and say, do you think I'll see my cat again? Do you think I'll see my dog? Because large sibling groups are hard to place, they have no promise of staying with their brothers or sisters, the only ones that understand this journey. I have seen a caseworker line up 4 small children on a couch, sit down on an ottoman in front of them, and say, pick your sibling. No child should ever walk that road. And because we never have enough foster families, ever, and listen to me, church, this is not a guilt trip, this is the truth. It is time for us to rise up. This was never the state's calling. This was our calling. From Isaiah to James, the entire Bible, this is who we are. These are our children, and they're sitting in an office, forgotten and alone, with nowhere to go. Because it seems scary. And I get that. The second thing that stood out to us were these caseworkers. Somewhere along the way, caseworkers became the villains. Caseworkers are not the villains. They are bathing babies in drug testing sinks. They are picking lice out in their break room. They are using what little money they get paid to go buy basic necessities and food. They are sitting in a cubicle with a traumatized sibling group of 3 calling their own family and saying, I won't be home tonight. I'm going to be in the office and I don't know how late. I'm sorry, I'm going to miss your basketball game. Mama's got to work. And the third thing that stood out to us is foster parents. We need good Christian foster parents. But it's hard. And I won't try to tell you that it's not. But Jesus is always where the pain is. Don't ever forget that. We can live this life trying to avoid the awkward, trying to avoid the hard, trying to avoid the uncomfortable. And we will still know Jesus, and He will still love us, and we will still love Him. But until you're in the trenches, you don't get to see one of the most beautiful sides of the Savior that we love. He's in the hard. But that call is going to come at 2 a.m., and they're going to say, we have a sibling group of 3. They have 0 possessions. They've been in the office for 12 hours. They're hungry. They're tired. Can we bring them to your home right now? That's hard. It's a hard yes. And so in January of 2017, which is 1/17, I did not plan that. God is funny. I said yes to a question He asked me in 2014 in a conference room in Johnson City, Tennessee. And my yes sounded like this. I have no idea what you want me to do, but I will do it. And God took off. I remember sitting in a coffee shop and Googling how to start a nonprofit, because if you want God to have the glory, you put someone totally ill-equipped in charge. I remember in 2017, I had no idea what a domain name was. I still don't understand who GoDaddy is, but if you give them your credit card, you can buy a name. We bought Isaiah117house.com. We started praying and asking and forming a board. We had our first board meeting on February 26th of 2017, and that's when the dream really took shape. What if there was a home? What if there was a home? What if when a child is going through the most traumatic day of their life, they don't go to a cubicle or a conference room, they go to a home? You need a bath? We got a fully stocked bathroom. We've got bubble bath and Elmo bath toys and a big white fluffy towel we're going to heat up and wrap you in. A bath. Teenager, you need a shower? We got shampoo, conditioner, deodorant, new bra, new underwear, dignity. Because you've done nothing wrong. You hungry? We got a fully stocked kitchen. We'll make anything you want. We'll order anything you want. On a day when you feel like you have no voice and no choice, what do you want? What if we could train volunteers and their sole purpose is to greet that child at the door, call them by name, and say, I see you. You are not alone. And God built this house for this day. And He's here right now. You are loved. What if there was a home? What if inside that home we could put an office space and we'll tell the department, bring all your paperwork. We'll have everything you need. You work on the paperwork, we'll love on the child, and together we'll do this really well. And by the way, caseworker, what's your favorite coffee? What's your favorite creamer? We're ordering dinner and we know you haven't eaten. We're going to get you something. Don't say no. It's on its way. What if we could love on that caseworker and remind them that they are not alone and that God sees how hard they're working and how hard they're trying? And what about that future call? What about that future placement? It may still come at 2 a.m., but what if it could sound like this? We have a sibling group of 3. They've all been at the Isaiah 117 house. They played outside and ate a snack. They had a bath and ate dinner. They're now in their new pajamas with their teeth brushed and bags full of stuff, everything they need for the next 2 to 3 days. And by the way, foster family, what do you need? You need a twin bed, crib, car seat, diapers, formula wipes, dinner. Don't go to Walmart. You are not alone. We see you and we thank you for stepping into the hard. What if there was a home? Has anyone in here ever been to Carter County, Tennessee? Y'all don't count. That came because of this. Nope, no one. I get that. Carter County, Tennessee, let me paint a picture. There is nothing happening in Carter County, Tennessee. We have a Dollar General on every corner, because that is the new standard. We have a Supercenter Walmart. I don't want to brag. And we have a state championship football team, Go Cyclones. That's it. That's all we got. And so I headed out into Carter County, tried to tell anyone that would listen about a day they'd never heard of. And some friends of ours agreed to sell us their house for $75,000. Now, I know it's not a Tennessee thing. They were giving us a good deal. They were going to sell us their house for $75,000. But I felt like we needed to raise the money. I wanted to pay cash. And so I'm going around telling anybody that'll listen. And a friend of mine came up to me and she said, listen, if you're going to do this, you have to have a social media presence. As of 2017, I had never been on the Facebook. I didn't understand why people got on the Facebook. Every time I would get on the Facebook, suddenly I wouldn't feel as good about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of a sudden my life wasn't as good as it was before I got on the Facebook. And so I didn't get on the Facebook. And she said, if you're going to do this, you have to have a social media presence. I've set up a Facebook page, figure it out. She called back the next day. Did you figure out Facebook? Nope, I don't want the Facebook. Ronda, if you're going to do this, you have to have a social media presence. Figure out Facebook. She called back the next day. Did you figure out Facebook? Nope. Ronda, 25,000 people have watched the video I posted of you and your husband, and the local news would like to interview you. You should figure out the Facebook. And I was like, yes, I should. And like, the power of the liking and the sharing and the liking and the sharing. Like all of a sudden, the local news, the local newspaper, all the local TV stations, they all wanted to interview me about what if there was a home. And I couldn't go anywhere in our little small community. I mean, the Walmart, it's the only place we go. I couldn't go to the Walmart that somebody wouldn't stop me, and it was usually a big burly man. He'd stop me and he'd say, listen, my wife made me watch that video of you and your husband. I was crying in my coffee. We got to get them kids a house. I'm like, yes, like the power of the Facebook. And then in summer of that year, a friend of mine made 12 T-shirts. They had our slogan on the front, love, you're not alone. We want that child to know they're not alone. We want that caseworker to know they're not alone. We want that future placement to know they're not alone. Our logo on the back, 10 board members, me and my husband, 12 shirts, on our kitchen counter with a cricket. And so every night, I was supposed to post at 9 o'clock. There's something magical about the Facebook at 9 o'clock. I don't know. So I'm trying to post every night at 9, and I said, Corey, can I post a picture of you wearing this shirt? He was like, yeah. I was like, do you think people will think we're selling them? He was like, no. We had 100 orders in 30 minutes, and to date, we've sold over $500,000 worth of t-shirts we weren't selling. It's crazy. So all of a sudden, I'd be at the grocery store, somebody'd grab my buggy, say, I'll hold you groceries, go get me a large and an extra large. And I'd walk out, I'm selling t-shirts out of the back of my van, people are liking and sharing, the news is interviewing me. And then all of a sudden, children started holding lemonade stands because they heard there were children that needed a home. $7,000 was raised that summer in lemonade. It was beautiful. The entire community rallied. The car show gave us money. The nursing home held a bake sale for the children. Like the football team did a fundraiser. Like every part of our community rallied. And in August of that year, we paid $75,595 cash for an Isaiah 117 house. It had a few issues. I'm not really into details. I'm more of a big picture kind of gal. And somewhere along the line in the closing, they said something about foundational issues. I don't know, seemed minor. And in this house built in 1940. And then the state came in and said, can we remove every load-bearing wall on the first floor of this home built in 1940 with foundational issues? And I said, well, of course we can. Sure. No, you can't. No, you can't. And so the little man from the codes department and I had a discussion, and he said, what's your plan? I said, I'm going to bring in some youth groups. And he said, no, you're not. And I was like, what? And so all of a sudden I needed a contractor. So I called this guy. His name is Travis. He coaches t-ball. His sister's a friend of mine. That's all I knew. Travis comes into the house, and I said, Travis, do you think we could remove every load-bearing wall on the first floor and fix the foundational issues for free? He was like, what? Rhonda, what in, oh my word. Let me see what I can do. Well, I didn't know this, but God did. Travis had just been hired by the largest developer in a neighboring town. And we got called into that conference room 4 days later and told that if we would demo that house to the studs in the next 5 days, they would rebuild it for free. All new plumbing, all new electrical, windows, roof, everything. We just had to gut that house to the studs in 5 days to fit in their construction plan. So I went to my new friend, the Facebook, and I put out an SOS, and 23 firefighters showed up and demoed that house in 2 days. Mitch Cox Companies did $90,000 worth of work to that home, never charged us a dime. Keller Williams did our entire backyard, pavilion, play set, fence, never charged us $16,000, never charged us. Cannon's Fine Home Furnishings, downtown Elizabethton, Tennessee, owned by Mr. and Miss Cannon. I taught their son, Chris. Gave us all the furniture for the house, except for the little boys' room. And those same firefighters came back and said, can we do the little boys' room as our Christmas project? And so on the day of the reveal of the cutest firefighter room you've ever seen, they handed me a plaque. It had their emblem in the middle and a verse from Isaiah. And it said, they will walk through the fire, but they will not be burned. And I started crying the ugly cry, because that is the prayer of this home. These children are walking through the fire, but my God can make it feel different. And so I'm crying the ugly cry. All these big burly firefighters are crying. We're standing there on the porch, and finally one of them goes, you know, Mike, he just ordered that off Pinterest. I'm like, Firefighter Mike is on Pinterest? Like, I mean, the entire community rallied. And in less than a year, we had a debt-free home with a fully funded first year's budget in the bank. Every closet full, every cabinet full, 40 trained volunteers. And we were ready to love on the children of Carter County. And I remember on the day of that ribbon cutting, I could not stop crying. Like, God, I had watched it. God had done this small town miracle. Like, I had watched him move his people and organize and form this army that had built this house to love on children in his name. And I just kept saying, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. And I now know he was up there laughing at me. He was like, that is so cute. She thinks there's going to be one house. That is precious. Because if God is building houses for children that he's never forgotten, he doesn't do that only in Carter County, Tennessee. And so Washington County called, and Sullivan, and Greene and Knox and Blunt and Sevier and Rutherford and Bradley and Coffee and Franklin and Grundy, and then Indiana called, well, of course they did. Because if God is building houses for children that he's never forgotten, he's not going to do that just in Tennessee. And then we received fake emails, fake websites, fake names, and we were told that a small documentary company was coming from New York to interview us for 2 days. And on the day that that small documentary company was supposed to walk through the red door of the Carter County House, a gentleman by the name of Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs, he walked through the front door for, ironically, a Facebook show called Returning the Favor. And our episode aired on March 9th of 2020, and 2 million people watched it. And on March 13th of 2020, the world shut down. But our God did not. In the middle of a global pandemic, 41 states and 4 countries have reached out wanting an Isaiah 117 house. Because that's what God can do with one little yes. I'm not doing this. He is. I remember I received a call from a lady in California. She had seen the micro show, and she said, "How many children are in custody in the state of Tennessee?" And I said, "There are 8,000 children in custody in the state of Tennessee." And she said, "There are 8,000 children in custody in my county in California." And I got off that phone call, and I was right back in that conference room. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't pick my head up. And I just kept saying, "God, it's too big." Like, you get that, right? Like, this is too big. I'm not your girl. It's too big. And all of a sudden, I saw myself, and I was holding this little bitty rock. And God was saying, "Drop the rock, Rhonda. Drop the rock. Drop that little bitty rock." And I let go, and this little bitty rock hit a pool of water and ripples. He said, "You drop the rock, I'll take care of the ripples." I'm here today because of one of those ripples. Lauren and Megan saw Returning the Favor and could not stop thinking about the need here in this county for the children of your county. And so they called me and they said, "We don't know how to do this, but we say yes." And that's why we're here today. We now have 30 expansions in 6 states. We just approved state 7 and 8, Arizona and Ohio. And he just keeps going. Because God is building houses for children so that they will know that every step of their life, before removal, after removal, he's there. He's always been there, and he always will be. And he wants to use his people to do it. We want to build an Isaiah 117 house, Dallas County. And we need your help. Thank you.
Okay, church. I think I'm like 0 for 10 when it comes to not crying on this stage, but I'm going to do my best today. Ronda already did a little, I saw little tears there, so fine. But Preacher asked us to give you all a call to action. And so there are literally 1,000,001 ways for you to be involved in this ministry. But you can start by coming to our monthly expansion meetings. We meet on the last Thursday of every month right here in the choir room at 6:30 p.m. You can come to a meeting, learn what we have going on, and find out how you can get involved. So that's one way to get involved.
We also have our Let's Build This House luncheon and dinner on April 28th at the Ruthie Jackson Center. And we still have openings for table hosts. As a table host, your responsibility is rather simple. You invite your friends and family and people who you feel like need to hear about the mission and ministry of Isaiah 117 House. You ask them to come sit with you. You get to have a nice meal and hear the story of Isaiah 117 House. And then at the end, you would collect any commitment cards or pledge cards and get them to Lauren and I at the end. And that's it. So you can host a table for either the lunch or the dinner. And we are also looking for some items for our silent auction. So if you would like to contribute, we can get you in contact with our subcommittee leader for our luncheon, and she can guide you with that. It is a completely free event, so please come out and join us. The lunch will be at 11:30, the dinner will be at 6, and there are invitations in the back.
And then the third way that we wanted to share with you is actually signing up to walk this journey with us and becoming a sock buddy. So you can become a sock buddy if you make a monthly donation of any amount. It can be $5, 10, 20, it does not matter. It's not about the money, it's about the mission, your commitment to helping us. And if you sign up to be a sock buddy, then we will send you a super, super cute Isaiah 117 House pair of socks. And that is the only way to get them. Even Ronda had to sign up to become a sock buddy to get the socks. So they are very exclusive. But we have information about signing up for a sock buddy in the back. We are going to be selling t-shirts today. If you don't have your Love You're Not Alone shirt, please consider purchasing one. You will be asked about your shirt. People will say, oh my gosh, I love your shirt. And so you may not be able to give this full spiel, but if you just say, hey, have you heard of Isaiah 117 House? It's a home for children waiting for foster placement. And lead them to our website. This is like the number one way we spread awareness because these shirts are so cute and they're eye-catching. But I think that's really it. Am I missing anything? And we will be in the back. Holly and Lissy and Jody and myself will be at the back to answer any questions that you may have. But that's it. Coming up to... Okay, that's it. Oh, okay. All right, so church, we are going to close it out in the way we always close out our sermons. So faith moves mountains. All right, bye guys.